5 years of marriage, and my husband's first love came back. Meanwhile, I was diagnosed with cancer. On the 5th year of being married to Chandler, Sarah returned. It was the end of the year, and heavy snow was falling. He was driving at 100 per hour to the airport to pick her up. I waited all night in the snow, and by the time my limbs had frozen stiff, he still hadn't returned. A year later, in a snowstorm, he sped at 150 kilometers per hour, chasing after a lost soul. As night deepened and the fog thickened, snowflakes suddenly began to fall from the sky. I had just set the tomato beef stew on the table when my phone in my pocket vibrated. I unlocked it, and it was a question from an anonymous online user. "How is the person you liked when you were young?" I smiled slightly, opened the keyboard, and typed my answer. "I became his wife. We walk hand in hand through the vegetable market, stroll aimlessly through tree-lined paths, with a room for two. 3 meals a day, for seasons of companionship. When winter comes, we snuggle closely by the window, holding a steaming cup of coffee, watching the snowflakes outside." Just as I finished typing the last period, I heard the sound of keys turning in the door lock, and my smile appeared once again. In the hallway, Chandler took off his black coat, revealing a light beige turtleneck sweater. There were droplets of water glistening on his tousled hair. I called out, "Dinner's ready. Wash your hands and get ready to eat." I opened the rice cooker, and the warm steam wafted toward me. Suddenly, I felt a tightness around my waist as Chandler's breath encircled me from behind. His scent was that of mint. He buried his chin in the crook of my neck and whispered softly, "Darling, I'm really lucky to have met you." Though he was only in his 20s, Chandler always called me darling, in a tone that felt like it belonged to another time, the old-fashioned way. Just then, the sound of my phone ringing broke the sweet silence. Chandler took out his phone. The screen lit up. It was Sarah. He frowned, hung up the call, and I pretended not to notice. Picking up another bowl to scoop the rice, he placed 2 bowls of rice on the table. Just as he was about to pull my chair out for me, his phone rang again. He pressed the button to hang it up, placed the phone aside, and looked at me apologetically. "Is it work-related?" I asked. He adjusted his glasses, his gaze shifting away. He answered softly, "It's a spam call." I picked up a piece of beef and put it in his bowl. His phone flickered again, furrowing his brows. He laid his chopsticks down, his eyes darkening as he gazed at me. "Joey, the company is dealing with an emergency. I need to head back to take care of it." Before I could respond, Chandler had already grabbed his phone, hurriedly walking toward the hallway. He quickly donned his coat, put on his shoes, and was about to turn the door handle to leave. I called out to him, "Chandler, you'll come back, right?" His gaze faltered for a moment, then he quickly regained composure. He gently replied, "Don't overthink it, I'll be back soon." With those words, the sound of the door closing sharply echoed in the quiet house. The snow outside grew heavier, burying the autumn air under layers of snow and pressing down on my heart. Suddenly, the light above flickered erratically. Maybe the snow had weighed down the nearby power lines, causing an unstable circuit. In the next moment, the entire house was engulfed in darkness, save for the faint glow of the streetlights outside. My legs began to shake uncontrollably, and I collapsed to the ground. I had a fear of the dark, and even when I slept, I had to keep a light on. In the past, when the power went out, Chandler would stay by my side, letting me close my eyes and hide in his arms, waiting for him to fix the circuits before I could open them again. But now, Chandler wasn't here, and panic surged within me. I looked outside, the streetlight becoming my last hope in the dark, and stumbled toward the door. I twisted the door handle and ran blindly toward the light. Despite the snowstorm raging outside, my back was drenched in cold sweat. Once my breathing steadied, I realized I had left my phone inside the house. A cold gust of wind swept past me, and the door slammed shut behind me. The villa was located halfway up the mountain, and it would take 2 hours to reach the base of the mountain where there were people. With such heavy snow, the road was even harder to navigate. I leaned against the street lamp, staring fixedly at the direction from which cars would come. Chandler would come back. He promised me he would. How could he break his word? The snow kept falling, and flakes melted on my eyelashes, stinging my eyes as the water dripped down. I wrapped my arms around myself and curled into a tight ball on the ground, the snow covering me, slowly turning into a round, frozen ball. An hour passed, and my body was covered with a thick layer of snow. yet Chandler still hadn't returned. I stood up and shook off the snow, but I slipped on the ice and fell to the ground. I tried to turn and get up, but my vision blurred. In the last moment before I closed my eyes, I heard a voice deep inside me. Joey, why are you deceiving yourself? You know that whenever he lies, he adjusts his glasses. Yes, we've been married for 5 years. I've known the meaning behind many of his small gestures. Why didn't I notice it this time? Maybe it was because I didn't want to believe it. After I collapsed, I sank into boundless darkness. In my dream, I saw my younger self, stubbornly staring at a woman whose face I couldn't make out, but I knew she wasn't my mother. For my mother passed away after giving birth to me. From the moment I could remember, this woman had been a part of my life, along with her daughter, my sister, Sarah. This woman locked me in a dark room to punish me for taking something from my sister, but that hairpin had originally been a gift from my grandmother. As I struggled desperately, trying to escape, my father returned. He glanced at me, and I wanted to call out to him, but I heard him say to the woman, Joey is just mischievous. You've really worked hard. The father I called out to couldn't be heard anymore. My hands, which were gripping the doorframe, lost all their strength, and the woman closed the door. In that pitch-black room, I heard her mock from outside the door, Joey, don't blame me. I gritted my teeth, my jaws grinding. It's because of you that my family is shattered. The woman outside laughed disdainfully. Don't accuse me, Joey. The one who ruined your family is you. You killed your mother. You made your father cold-hearted. I should even thank you. You're lying. It wasn't me. I got up and pounded on the door. She sneered. Your mother died giving birth to you, didn't she? You must have been the cause of her death. I bet she hated you back then. Even your name was chosen randomly. You killed your mother. She must have hated you. I couldn't hear anything else. Her words filled my ears. I felt as though I had entered a maze, trapped inside and unable to get out. When I opened my eyes again, I was greeted by the sight of a white ceiling and the lingering smell of disinfectant in the air. Beside my bed was a young girl in her 20s, with a high ponytail, diligently peeling an apple. When the girl saw I had woken up, her face lit up with joy. Sister, you're finally awake. Who are you? I asked. Confused, I finished work at 12 last night and saw you lying alone under the streetlight. I called an ambulance. Sister, I think you're only a few years older than me, so you can just call me Lucy, the girl said eagerly. I smiled gently at her. Thank you, Lucy. It's no problem. Sister, by the way, were you waiting for someone in the snow last night? Her clear eyes were full of curiosity. Yes, I was waiting for my husband. I gave a wry smile. The aunt in the neighboring bed turned on the public TV, and the morning news host was reporting, last night, a man drove at 100 kilometers per hour to pick up his girlfriend at the airport. While it's heartwarming, we still advise citizens to drive cautiously in snowy weather due to slippery roads. A few brief scenes of the event flashed on screen for about 30 seconds, but even in that brief moment, I recognized the man, and the ring on his finger. I had been frozen in the snow for 5 or 6 hours. While Chandler had broken traffic laws to pick up my sister, my stomach let out a growl of hunger at the wrong moment. Lucy, looking worried, asked, Sister, what would you like to eat? I'll go buy it for you. I thought for a moment and then replied, bread, please. Okay, she said, and hurried out the door. Since I woke up, I had one question on my mind. Why was I in a hospital room and not an emergency treatment room? Why was I wearing a hospital gown instead of my own clothes? Just as I was pondering, the doctor arrived. He had a solemn expression, as though announcing the verdict of fate. He walked up to me, looked at the medical chart in his hand, and asked, Are you the girl who was brought to the emergency room last night? I nodded. Has your family had a chance to come to the hospital? Family? I probably only had Chandler, but right now, they're all quite busy. You can just tell me, doctor. I just fainted, right? Is there something else wrong? I asked cautiously. The doctor explained in detail. You were indeed brought in because of fainting, but during last night's examination, we found a shadow in your brain. We did some further tests, and the results came in this morning. He handed me a stack of test results. Amid the dense list of procedures, I saw the 4 words at the bottom, diagnosed with brain cancer. As I flipped through the papers, the doctor continued, explaining further, it's already in the late stage. And it's malignant. Current medical technology cannot cure it. Hospital treatment may have some effect, but it's better if your family is informed. as their presence will help the treatment process. Doctor, how long do I have left? At least 6 months, at most a year. Okay, doctor, thank you, I'll discuss it with my family. If you decide on further treatment, please contact me. My name is Lee. The doctor pointed to his badge before leaving. Lucy returned with the bread. Her face, once filled with joy an hour ago, was now clouded with worry. It seemed she had overheard our conversation. Lucy, come sit. I pushed the diagnosis out of my mind and smiled at the girl at the door. Sister, you, she couldn't finish her sentence, and tears already welled up at the corners of her eyes. It's fine, Lucy, look, I'm all right now. By the way, don't you have to go to work? I purposely changed the subject. It's fine. I run my own coffee shop. I'm the boss. She wiped away the tears at the corner of her eye. Can you take me to see it? The girl paused for a moment, then nodded. Okay. After being discharged from the hospital, we took a bus. There was still an hour until our stop, and Lucy began to tell me a story from her past. She had an older sister who treated her very well. Their family lived in the countryside, and after finishing middle school, their parents wanted her to get married instead of continuing her education. It was her sister who brought her to the city, working several jobs to support her while helping her get into university. Whenever she had free time, she would help her sister at the coffee shop. But one day, near closing time, her sister went out and never came back. Her phone was off, and no one could find her. The police were called, but due to the lack of surveillance at that time, her sister was never found. Later, after Lucy graduated and made some money, she bought the coffee shop when it became available, and became the owner. She was still waiting for her sister to come back. As Lucy told her story, the light in her eyes gradually dimmed. There was no choking sobs, no tears, just a calmness, as if she were narrating someone else's tale. Perhaps this was the end of sorrow, the point where even tears have dried up. The girl's coffee shop and my villa are located on the same mountain, but on opposite sides. The side where my villa stands has a road for easy access, while the coffee shop is situated on the sunny side of a scenic area. A few years ago, the scenic area was temporarily closed for renovation, and its visitor traffic gradually decreased, which might explain why the coffee shop was transferred. The shop has an antique style of decoration and covers about 40 square meters. A wooden sign at the entrance reads, "Snow." Though the shop is small, everything is neatly arranged, and the tables are spotless, reflecting the girl's diligence and cleanliness. Lucy pulled up a chair for me to sit down and began grinding coffee beans. The front counter's order bell rang, and the frown on her face relaxed. Soon, a few tourists came in, and Lucy started working in the kitchen. I picked up the landline and dialed Chandler's number. The familiar voice came through the receiver. "Hello, who's speaking?" "It's me, Chandler, Joey. Sorry. I was so busy yesterday that I forgot to reply to your message." Chandler's tone was full of apology. Busy picking up my sister. I thought, "I'll send you my location, come pick me up." "You're not at home." Chandler's voice suddenly became cold. I lied. "I just went out for a walk." "It's too cold to walk back." Chandler sighed in relief, his tone softening. "All right, wait for me." When Chandler arrived, Lucy was still busy. I asked him for his phone and transferred 5,000 yuan to Lucy. "Do you know each other?" Chandler gestured to Lucy. I nodded, casually saying, "She reminds me of my sister." Chandler's face darkened, and after a long pause, he said, "I see, seems like a coincidence." I left a card I had written at the hospital on the table, then left with Chandler, in the front passenger seat of the black SUV. A sparkling plastic glitter caught my eye, surrounded by a faint peach scent. It was Sarah's favorite peach fragrance. Sarah must have been sitting here last night, I thought, staring blankly ahead. Chandler asked, "What's wrong? Are you feeling unwell?" I hid the glitter in my hand and replied, "Just a little tired. I want to take a nap." He pulled the car over to the side, took out a blanket from the back seat, and spread it over me, adjusting the seat to a comfortable angle. He patted my head and in his magnetic voice, said, "Sleep, don't catch a cold." He seemed like my husband, Chandler, but the news from last night and the report this morning kept reminding me that we might never return to how things were before. As my eyelids closed, I fell asleep. A voice shook me awake. "Hey, wake up." The person in front of me was Chandler from high school. I remembered the winter hiking trip, when I had low blood sugar and was at the back of the group. After finally reaching the top of the mountain, I lost my balance on the way down and fainted. Chandler and Sarah were in the same class, the school's most popular boy and girl, with rumors of them everywhere. I never imagined that my first meeting with Chandler would be so embarrassing. He wasn't as cold as the rumors said. In fact, he had a gentle, refreshing kindness. The sun had already set. I, who was afraid of the dark, shivered uncontrollably. Chandler held my hand and softly reassured me. "It's okay, I'll take you home." The way down was long, and Chandler struck up a conversation. "What class are you in?" "B class." "What's your name?" "Joey." "Your family must want you to be happy." Seeing that I didn't respond, he chuckled and added, "Joey sounds like joy, so your family must hope you're always happy." So, that was the explanation I had been waiting for. For 10 years, scenes flashed through my mind. Chandler coming to our class to deliver breakfast to me. Chandler confessing to me at the graduation party. Chandler carrying me up a mountain to watch shooting stars. Chandler making snow art for me in front of the dorm on the first snow. The boy who held my hand had already started to carry me. The boy I thought was a god in my eyes had become my husband. But then, the dream ended. I opened my eyes. Chandler was sitting in the driver's seat, holding a phone to his ear, responding to work matters. When he saw that I was awake, he lowered his voice and quickly finished the call, then apologized. "Sorry, did I disturb you?" I shook my head, signaling it was fine. Chandler and I had been married for 5 years. Over those years, he had always been kind to me. I didn't believe he would lie to me, and if he did, there must be a reason. The diagnosis of brain cancer felt like a ticking time bomb, and I didn't know how to face Chandler. I decided I should tell him. One afternoon, I went to his office to bring him lunch. On the first floor of the CEO's office, I saw Sarah. Other staff members greeted her. "Miss Sarah, hello." She wore a pair of black high heels with sparkling rhinestones, her face radiating a sweet smile. "Don't forget the meeting this afternoon." As she turned, she saw me coming out of the elevator. Her smile froze for a moment before returning to normal. "Sister, you're here." By now, most people had gone for lunch, leaving the floor empty. I looked at her coldly. "Don't pretend now that no one's around." When she saw the lunchbox in my hand, her eyes curved into crescent moons. "Did you make something delicious again? Is there any of the fried egg you made this morning?" Chandler left in such a hurry this morning that I made him breakfast to take to work, which included the fried egg. Sarah pressed her red lips together. "Sorry, sister, I had low blood sugar." "So Mr. Chandler gave me his breakfast. You're not mad, are you?" I gritted my teeth and replied slowly, "No, if he wanted to, what's there to be mad about?" Sarah's peach fragrance reminded me of that day in the heavy snow. I didn't want to stay for another moment, pressed the elevator button, and prepared to leave. Sarah called after me, "Sister, aren't you waiting for Mr. Chandler?" I didn't respond and stepped into the elevator. A sweet, metallic taste filled my mouth. I pulled out a tissue and wrapped the blood in it. When I left the elevator, I threw the lunchbox and the diagnosis report into the trash. After leaving the coffee shop last time, Lucy added me on WeChat through the card I left behind. She wanted to return the 5,000 yuan, but I refused. She threatened me, saying that if I didn't accept it, I wouldn't consider her as my sister. Reluctantly, I accepted. Since I got sick, Lucy has kept in touch with me, sending me various alternative treatments for brain cancer. I knew they wouldn't help, but I comforted her saying, "They're really effective. I feel much better after taking them." Today was my second visit to the coffee shop. When Lucy saw me, she hurried over. "Sister, I have some good news." "What good news?" "The number of takeout orders in my shop has increased. A big company placed an order, over 100 cups a day. That must be because Lucy's doing so well. Everyone's fighting for it." The girl blushed at the compliment. "Sister, please sit down. I only have a dozen cups left to make." I watched her back as she moved, smiling. Chandler had been coming home late these days, always looking tired. Every time I asked, he vaguely said it was work-related, but what kind of work requires him to smell like peaches? These past few months, I've been suffering from insomnia, often having headaches so bad I couldn't sleep. I tried to endure it and avoid taking medicine, but later it became unbearable, and I went to the hospital for painkillers. That day, I saw Chandler with Sarah beside him. Sarah was leaning on Chandler's shoulder, and Chandler was helping her. Even though we were separated by just a hallway, It felt like an entire century between us. It was as if there was a one-way mirror between us. I could see him, but he couldn't see me. In mid-June, the company held a gathering for its third anniversary. Chandler asked if I was going. He had asked me the same question in the first year. And I told him I wouldn't go because I found commercial gatherings boring. Besides, I trusted Chandler completely, so there was no need for me to show up and make a public appearance. Chandler also thought such gatherings were full of mixed personalities and didn't push me to go. After that, he stopped asking. But this year, he asked again. Was he hoping I would go, or was he confirming something? Or maybe it was because of Sarah. Did he want to take her along? I quickly dismissed the thought. Chandler wouldn't do that. I told him I wasn't going. He smiled and patted my head, saying, "I'll be back early. If you're tired, go to bed early." He got into the car, dressed in a custom-made suit, and left. I made dinner. It was only a little past 6. I glanced at the dining table and made 2 extra portions. Chandler hadn't been home for dinner in a long time, so I still made double portions, fearing he might get hungry when he returned. However, as I looked at the food, I had no appetite at all. My nerves throbbed, and the pain in my head was unbearable. I swept all the food off the table, tearing the tablecloth to shreds. The sound of plates crashing and breaking echoed through the room, after the noise died down. The mess left behind felt just like my relationship with him these past few months. On the surface, everything appeared harmonious, but in reality, it had long since shattered. I cleaned up everything and opened the wardrobe to try on the beautiful dress Chandler had given me a few days ago, but I found I couldn't even fit into it. The pain from my illness and the effects of the medication had caused me to lose weight. Yet Chandler hadn't noticed. After much searching, I finally found a white, slightly floral dress that fit. It was as fragile and shallow as my life. I took a cab to the venue for the gathering. Under the dazzling lights, there were business elites in suits and elegant women in colorful evening gowns. I felt out of place in my simple attire. Even though the crowd was dense, I spotted Chandler standing tall and slender. Beside him was Sarah, wearing a black strapless gown that made her resemble a black rose. Stunning and regal, I stood there quietly, my heart pounding violently, thundering in my chest. They were by the bar, toasting and laughing with some people. The perfect match. Handsome man and beautiful woman. Someone patted me on the shoulder and said, "Miss Joey, you're here." I turned around to see Chandler's assistant. I softly replied, "Just came to take a look, nothing special." Turning back, I saw Chandler looking at me anxiously, his expression changing rapidly. He wanted to push through the crowd to find me, but it was difficult with so many people. I smiled faintly at him, understanding his situation, and turned to leave the hall. This should make it easier for him now, I thought, though tears still welled up in my eyes. I hailed a cab and went home. On the way, I neither cried nor smiled, only felt a dull ache in my chest, as though I was being pierced by 1,000 silver needles, struggling to breathe. The nerves on my scalp burned as if being scorched by a fierce flame. Sweat dripped down my forehead, and my blood vessels were clearly visible under my skin. When I got home, I took a few painkillers. Gradually, the pain subsided. The sound of the door unlocking came from the entrance. Chandler was back, but why couldn't I feel happy? He rushed in, his tie already undone and hanging behind his neck. When he saw me sitting quietly on the sofa, he slowed his steps. "Joey, I can explain," he said, his eyes filled with sincerity. "It's okay, I understand." I looked at him softly. He opened his mouth to speak, but I cut him off. "Your sister just came back to the country, and it's good for you to help her meet more people. Besides, you were classmates. It's only natural to help her out." "Then, dear, you," I smiled and interrupted. I was a little angry at the time, but now, it's fine. Chandler tossed his suit jacket aside, walked over, and held me tightly in his arms, as though he wanted to melt me into him. His warm breath spread across me. "Joey, have you been dieting lately? You seem to have lost weight." I smiled but didn't answer. As we were close together, the boyish mint scent was no longer pure, now mixed with the smell of peaches, which made me want to vomit. After that incident, I continued to play the role of a good wife, pretending nothing had happened. I woke up early to make Chandler breakfast, waited for him to come home, and then we fell asleep in each other's arms, just like every other day over the past 5 years. On Valentine's Day, the streets were filled with a romantic atmosphere. I drove to Chandler's company building to wait for him. I texted him, "There's a movie showing, let's go watch it together, I'm waiting downstairs." He replied with a cute emoji and said he'd be down soon. An old lady was selling heart-shaped balloons, popular for Valentine's Day, and I bought one. When Chandler came down and saw me holding the balloon, his eyes curved in a smile. We put the balloon in the storage area and went into the theater to watch the movie. It was a romance film. The female lead had stomach cancer and kept it a secret from the male lead. Eventually, she couldn't hide it anymore, so she pretended to fall in love with someone else and broke up with him. The male lead couldn't stand the betrayal, so in a fit of anger, he left. By the time he returned, the female lead had already passed away. He was filled with regret. The plot was simple and melodramatic, just like the endings of many tragic love stories. Love unfulfilled. Yet, I still cried. Chandler held me close and softly comforted me. It's just a movie, adapted. There's no way a male lead in real life would be so foolish. I sniffled and stopped my tears, then looked up at him and asked, "What would you do if I got a terminal illness one day?" He clicked his tongue. "Don't say such things." Chandler gently tapped my nose. I insisted, "What if? Would you marry someone else after I'm gone?" He held me tightly, his expression turning serious as he said, "You are my whole world. If you leave, my world will collapse." His voice trailed off, and I knew he was choking up, unable to continue. Under the movie theater lights, I held on to him, and he kept me close. We remained in silence, waiting for the movie to end. Suddenly, I didn't want to leave. Just a few days ago, I had often held a razor blade to my wrist, only to put it down later. The doctor called, urging me to go for radiation therapy, but I refused. I thought, dying sooner would be a kind of relief. But now, pressed against Chandler's burning chest, I could feel his intense, pure love, and I couldn't bear to let go. But the world loves to joke with you. It gives you a piece of candy and then slaps you across the face, leaving you in pain. One autumn day, I received a call from Chandler's assistant. "Ma'am, is Mr. Chandler home?" I called him, but he didn't answer. "He's not home. You can try checking places Chandler often visits. I'll be at home waiting. If you find him or if he comes back, let me know." After hanging up, I opened WeChat to check Chandler's friends. In a panic, I accidentally opened Sarah's Moments. The photo was of a starry sky, with the caption, "The difference between a shooting star and you is that the star is in the sky, while you are by my side." The photo showed a slender hand wearing a diamond ring. Reflecting the cold white moonlight, at the bottom of the photo, there was a location tag, a stargazing platform in the western suburbs. I drove there. It was nighttime, and the streetlights were dim due to age. I gathered the courage to use a flashlight and climbed up the stairs, one step at a time, just before reaching the top. I glanced at the observation platform. Two familiar figures appeared directly in my line of sight. Even though the photo already confirmed my suspicions and I recognized the diamond ring, I still couldn't bring myself to believe it. I walked through the darkness, just to confirm the doubts in my heart. But when the truth was in front of me, I didn't want to look. I quietly took out my phone and captured the scene. Then, I silently returned home. When Chandler came back, I was already lying in bed. He called me, but I didn't answer. He quietly tucked in the blanket and carefully lay down beside me. He kissed my forehead and softly said, "Good night, dear." The next morning, as I got up, I felt the blood in my throat rising. I rushed to the bathroom and spat out the blood. After wiping my mouth with a tissue, I turned around to see Chandler standing at the door. His face was pale, and he looked at me with deep concern, asking, "What's going on?" I smiled and replied, "I've been a little overheated lately. I drank some syrup, and it tasted awful. I threw it all up." He furrowed his brows, but they slowly relaxed. "I'll check the pharmacy today for some capsules, so it won't be so bitter." But I didn't wait for the capsules. Instead, I received a cold, simple text from Chandler that evening. "Dear, there's a problem overseas that I need to resolve. It will take about a month. You must take good care of yourself, eat well, and look after your health. If you need anything, let my assistant know. I'll be back as soon as possible. Please don't worry." A month was enough time for me to have a cup of coffee with Snow, enough time to say goodbye to my grandmother, and enough time to leave before Chandler returned. I had planned to tell Lucy about my condition, but I thought it would be too cruel for her. After thinking it over, I just said I was going on a long trip with my husband. And I might not be back for a while. I also asked her to give this letter to someone if they came looking for me. When Lucy accepted the letter, she asked about my condition, and I told her I was feeling better. I said I was going abroad to see if there were better treatment options. Only then was she willing to let me leave. After leaving the cafe, it was still early, so I decided to visit my grandmother. She lived on the outskirts of the city. My grandfather had passed away a long time ago. And my grandmother had raised my mother alone. Later, my mother also left, and now, her only granddaughter was about to leave her too. My grandmother was old, and her eyesight was poor, so I secretly placed a bank card under her pillow with the password attached. Even though she couldn't move around easily, she insisted on walking me to the door. Through the rearview mirror, I saw her tiny figure still waving at me. My tears surged up in my eyes. Epilogue. When Chandler opened the door to the villa, he called out, "Darling," as usual, but received no response. He placed his briefcase on the shoe rack and noticed that a thick layer of dust had already settled on it. A bad premonition crept into his mind. He couldn't find Joey in the kitchen, not in the study, nor in the bedroom. Panic began to rise in him. He dialed Joey's phone, but it was off. Scratching his head, he thought for a moment. Then called the assistant to ask if Joey had been in touch with him. The assistant said she hadn't. Before hanging up, the assistant added, "Oh, Mr. Chandler, your wife had given me a card to buy coffee for the company, but the balance is used up. Should we order from the same place again?" Chandler was puzzled. "What coffee?" "Snow. It's quite good." "Snow?" Chandler's mind suddenly recalled something. He ended the call and headed for Lucy's cafe. "Can I get you something, sir?" Lucy asked. "I'm looking for Joey. Do you know where she is?" "Ah, Joey. She told me about a month ago that she was going on a long trip with her husband." "Her husband?" Chandler was confused. He asked, "Where did she go?" "I'm not exactly sure, but probably Europe. The medical conditions there are better." "Medical?" "Yes. Joey has been sick." "Right, sick." "Yes, brain cancer. Didn't you know? Aren't you her friend?" "No, I'm her husband," Chandler replied, his voice heavy with emotion. Lucy looked at him in surprise, and Chandler asked, "Did she say anything else?" "Oh, she left a letter for me to give to anyone looking for her." Chandler took the envelope, his mind racing with thoughts. The paper was thin, brown parchment. He tore open the seal and pulled out the letter. Sitting in the car, he opened it, only to find a photograph inside. The photo was completely dark. Chandler set it aside, intending to read the letter first. On the smooth surface of the paper was Joey's delicate handwriting, neat and orderly in flowing script. "My dear Chandler, seeing your handwriting is like seeing you in person. The year has flown by, and now it's the end of November. Our story should have an ending too. I've imagined countless ways of saying goodbye to you, like disappearing suddenly or getting revenge by dying in front of you. Do you remember what you promised me at the movie theater that day? You said I was your entire world. And wasn't I the same? How could I bear to make you live in pain? So I decided to write this letter. They say handwritten letters are the greatest romance of this century, so let this be the way I bid you farewell. I've always been insecure, probably because I lost my mother at a young age. I easily feel anxious and afraid of loss. But when I met you, I understood that my mother did love me. It's because of you that I learned what it feels like to be loved. I'm just an ordinary person in this complicated world, wanting to live a simple life. But because of your words, I'm here. I began to cherish life and have hope. My life hasn't been long, just 28 years. Let's call it 30, for the 2 extra years I got to live. I may not live to see our anniversary this year, but I hope that on our 6th anniversary, you will remain untroubled, walking in the spring sunlight. The snow came early this year, and the window is already frosted over. I remember reading a sentence in a book the other day. Legend has it that only the hurricane with a speed of 150 kilometers per hour on Disappointment Island can catch up with a soul that has passed. Though the book was talking about an albatross, I think, like it, I am also the most faithful believer in love. Without realizing it, I've come to the end of this letter. Chandler, this is our final farewell. Maybe one day, you'll find yourself by my side, telling me the story from this letter. And we'll talk about it all night. The page was filled with words, none of them mentioning her illness, but all of them brimming with the intention of farewell. Outside the car window, snowflakes began to fall again, marking the arrival of another winter. Joey, his wife, was somewhere. He didn't know where. preparing his meals. Tears rolled down his face. But there was a smile on his lips. He picked up the photograph and stared at it in the dim light for a long time. Finally, he recognized it. It was a photo of Sarah and him. It was the last photo his wife had taken for him, but she was not the main subject. Chandler tore the photo into pieces and threw it out the car window. Watching the pieces mix with the falling snow, he drove aimlessly, unsure of where to go. Without Joey, the house was just an empty shell. He drove through the streets. Reminiscing about the contents of the letter, he found himself on a desolate suburban road and, in a sudden fit of desperation, slammed his foot down on the gas pedal. The car sped from 60 to 140, the engine roaring. Chandler muttered under his breath, "Darling, walk slowly, I'm coming for you." The blizzard caused Chandler's car to slip, and it skidded off the road, flipping onto the roadside. In the minutes before he lost consciousness, Chandler answered his phone. The voice on the other end said, "Mr. Chandler, Sarah's condition has improved, and she's now eligible for surgery. When can your wife come? She's already fine," Chandler said with his last breath. The voice on the other end seemed puzzled. "How could leukemia heal on its own, Mr. Chandler? We suggest you come to the hospital to confirm." After that, there was only eternal silence. Perhaps her illness wasn't leukemia but brain cancer. The villa halfway up the mountain never lit up again. But some people claimed they saw lights flickering inside during a snowstorm. Perhaps Chandler, knowing his Joey was afraid of the dark, had secretly lit the lights. But how could a lost soul find its way back in a snowstorm? Years later, Lucy, who had opened many chain stores, bought that villa. In a drawer in the study, she found a notebook with the words, "Joey's mother died of leukemia, and Sarah was the only cure. Today, she coughed up blood but lied to me, saying it was syrup." The date at the bottom was the day before Chandler left on his business trip. After hearing the story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.